is NTV.
Good evening and welcome to Press Pass on this 20th day of February. This is going to be our focus tonight.
This narrative of 40 billion, I don't know where it's coming from. I have never signed a contract.
That's the man on the spot over the military tender scam that is making headlines, with the media coming in the headwinds of criticism on how this story is unfolding.
Ni kama Ruto wasipotaja kwa hii mambo yao ya media, hawawezi uza magazeti yao ama hakuna mwenye atasikia maneno yenyu kwa medias.
And that's the other name that has been in the headlines following this particular story on the military tender scam. Deputy President Ruto, is he being victimized, and the media playing right into it? Let's meet our guest tonight. And next to me is Vincent Achuka. He is the senior investigative reporter at the Daily Nation and has been on this particular story and is still going to give us a bit more details on the latest development earlier today. That is the finding of the body of one of the security officers. We'll get more details on that. Alphonse Shundu is the Africa Check Kenya editor, and he has been here with us as a colleague at the Daily Nation as well as at the Standard, and has also been in the headwinds of the government after doing an investigative story on military procurement of some equipment in the year 2015. Good riddance, he didn't become a guest of the state, and he's a free man. He'll tell us a bit more about that. And Mwalimu Mutemi Wakiama, not a stranger to this particular panel. He is a community organizer. I don't know if it's a mobilizer as well, but public intellectual he'd like to be called, and also a critique of the stories that are unfolding in the public space. And Kipchumba Karori next to him is an advocate of the High Court and as well very keen on the stories that are making headlines. Now, first things first, the particular question that we put to people across the country, different counties, is whether the media is actually falling into the narrative of just dragging the name of the deputy president, especially now with the latest story on the military scam, that is the military tender scam of 39.5 billion shillings. This is what they had to say.
Vyombo vya habari vinamwonea naibu rais. Kile ambacho naweza kusema ni kwamba kwa wakati mwingine mimi mwenyewe mtazamo wangu ni kwamba saa zingine vyombo vya habari vinalalia upande mmoja kweli. Maana kuna watu ambao kitu kikifanyika tu utasikia kila mara amehusishwa hata kabla ya uchunguzi kufanywa.
Kusema ukweli juu ya Ruto si mbaya. Kuna maneno madogo ambayo yanafuatana ambayo yanatusumbua kiroho. Hivi kama hizi zingine ambayo zinafanya kidogo sila ambayo kama vile watu wanaongea. Hizo ndio zinafanya yeye anaongewa vibaya ama vizuri.
Kwa upande wangu mimi naweza sema ni kama analengwa kisiasa. Napoangalia kila skanda yote ambayo inahusika, labda wanataka kumhusisha ndani. Mimi hiyo yote nasema ni uongo. Ni afadhali tuachie idara ambayo husika ichunguze ndio ipate kiini cha maneno ambayo yanamzunguka kwa hivi sasa.
I think the media are doing a good job because, for one, our deputy president was one of the team who were fighting even for the constitution change, and what they agitated for more was to have freedom for the media team. So I don't think why are people now thinking on a negative direction? Yet he was among the team who was supporting that the media should be given freedom. I think the media, in my capacity, are doing the right thing.
Ask me, I think there's a huge war that Ruto is facing, and media is being used as a medium to wage that war. And if you look at all the headlines that have come up, you can tell that there's a narrative being driven, which is a narrative which has run over time. So I would completely not accuse the media, but I think the media has accepted to play a role in a big fight, in a big war that Ruto is the subject of the war. And the reason why is the succession politics. You know, all of a sudden, we are having all these narratives that the deputy president is corrupt, the deputy president will be, his office is ransacked. There's all these narratives coming around, but they were not there 5 years ago. They were not there 10 years ago, but they are now here.
The public rely on the media. And I've realized that media reporting has not been that objective, because now the media is after big headlines. They want to capture the readers. And in that doing, we forget that we are going against the media and the teaching of the media. So to my own view is that the media needs to improve and change on the way they report.
We want to call upon the members of the press to consider that he is also a human being. He is a leader, he has a family, and he also needs justice. In that any kind of allocation that has been made against him, we all need to wait until the due process has been done.
Mwanzoni kabisa amekuwa akidai kwamba gazeti la kufunga nyama. Hii ni dhana ya kuonyesha kwamba hapendi vyombo vya habari tangu mwanzo. So labda kila ambacho tutasema ni kwamba iwapo kweli anatenda mazuri na vyombo vya habari havioni hayo mazuri, itakuwa vyema kutenda hayo mazuri zaidi.
Media in one way or another is so much to deputy president. If probably he is given his space to do his things.
Kwangu kama mwananchi ama Mkenya, sioni shida yote kwa watu wa media kuhusiana na DP wetu, naona wanaendelea sawa.
Deputy President achane na maneno ya media. Media wanafanya kazi yao. Kazi ya media ni kuripoti news. Na to me I think Ruto is the one who is creating that news.
The DP is right to say that the media is after him so much. It's only that being a mirror, they are trying to reflect what the society wants. And as much as they are trying to unearth every deal the DP is involved in, they are trying to prove him right, whether he's right for leadership in 2022 or is not qualified.
Mimi sioni kama anaonewa kulingana na sheria ya Kenya. Sisi kama raia kuna jukumu kusimamia Kenya yetu, because kila kitu tunatoa kama raia ni kujendeleza country yetu.
Hakuna hao wanasema, media wanasema ukweli yao kwa sababu wanasikia ndio wanasema. Hawezi kusema bila kuonolea yeye. Yeye ndio kuna kimbelembele yake. Ndiye inaleta maneno hiyo na kuwa namna hiyo.
Sijui kwa nini panel yangu inacheka. I don't know why that tickled them. But yes, this, to put it into context, is based on the latest story. And yes, there's been other scandals, but let's put it into context, is on this 39.5 billion shillings military tender scam that has the former sports cabinet secretary, that is Rashid Echesa, at the center of it. And because there was a meeting that was held in the precincts or the office of the deputy president last Thursday, and because of their names being dragged into this, then deputy president's name has been all over this story. And this is something he tweeted not too long ago on the 16th of February. The office of the deputy president does not procure for any ministry, department. Question: other than the 23 minutes in the annex for months, which government officials involved in the tender did the scammers visit? Did they access DOD? Who facilitated? Who did they meet? And get the truth. Forget the sponsored nonsense in media, he says. I'll start with you, Vincent, because you've been on this particular story, and also respond to what the people have said from around the country.
I think if you look at whatever people are saying, most people were swaying the arguments depending on where they were being interviewed from. You saw people from Kisumu. Yes. It was very obvious because they were the last ones there, and they were saying that the DP is a bit corrupt, I don't know what. Nakuru was a bit different. So it depends largely on your political inclination, and probably most of what is being discussed out there is being driven by politicians. Because if you ask me, because I've followed quite a number of corruption scandals in this country, I haven't seen anywhere the DP was directly mentioned, apart from, you're free to correct me, that was last month when there was an attempt to kickstart a case where I think people lost land, or government land was lost at Ngong Forest when the DP was agriculture minister during the Kibaki government. The others where people are trying to say probably has been mentioned or not, I can only name two. One was last year in July when there was a fake letter that was purporting to say that guys were planning to assassinate the DP, and this Echesa case. And no one has even said the DP is involved.
Why is he all over the headlines, would you say, in this particular? There's the issue of prominence. But, for instance, if we just look at some of the headlines, this is a story you did for Monday. Ruto fights links to 40 billion shillings arms racket as probe widens. From the Standard, DP admits to a 23-minute meeting at his annex office. And from the Star by Felix Olik and Esther Mbogwa, they say why Ruto is under fire over fake military deal. That's just some from earlier this week. Why then is he all over this particular story?
But even Mark, without even going to the story, if anybody who has gone to media school knows there's something called the law of prominence. If a prominent person, prominence supersedes everything else. If a prominent person is on whichever story.
It doesn't supersede facts and the truth.
But the facts are there. People cut a deal and in the DP's office. The DP's office is a protected area. You don't just walk into the DP's office. Anybody can try. You don't just walk. You might be able to walk into the building, yes, but you cannot access his office.
All right. And this is just to start off the conversation. Let me just throw it to the extreme end of this panel. And Kipchumba, from what you've heard and from what is being said in the dragging of the name of the Deputy President in this particular story. Tunaonea, DP.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I think we must open the thinking beyond the Echesa scandal. We must ask ourselves, how have the newspaper headlines been prior to the death of His Excellency Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi? It has always been Ruto this, Ruto that, Ruto water in another county, Ruto this. So I think the reality, away from the Echesa issue, the reality is that Ruto is the boogeyman of the moment. When you want to sell and everything, and this is how it works. When you say Ruto, the people who are pro-Ruto will buy the newspaper. The people who are anti-Ruto will buy the newspaper because we are in a succession mood. So I will say, just like the previous headlines, the media in this one has been caught up in what we call succession narratives. Because when you want to ask yourself the why question, the how, the when, that is when you realize the media lost the ball. You ask yourself, what happened to investigative journalists? The first question you need to ask, when we say we have investors who are willing to invest 39 billion, you ask yourselves, why are they on a tourist visa? Before even you look at William Ruto and the other people, you ask yourself, these people are here. We are told one has worked in Nyeri County. You come down, when and how? How did these people come here and have a man wearing a general's regalia? Those are not daily uniform you can find. Ochuka can go there and buy and bring it to me. The other thing you need to ask, yes, we know the law of prominence, but as you said, it cannot go beyond the facts. Facts will always be supreme. Facts are sacred. The other thing you need to ask, outside Echesa, who are these other co-accused? Why are we only framing Echesa and leaving the rest? The other thing, which we ought to have seen after the headline broke the news, we ought to have asked ourselves, these people, what have they done previously? These generals and the other three co-accused, what are their business acumen or credentials? What are they on a daily life? And then you come back now to the issue of the people who are purporting to be investors.
If I'm getting you right, are we getting stuck on the name of DP Ruto in this particular case?
Yes, actually, my concern as a normal Kenyan will be this. Here, Mark Masai, we have an issue that touches on security of this nation. 10 years ago, we had mercenaries here, the Atur and those other things. Here we have people who are in this nation on a visitor's visa. Yes. They are in this nation purporting to be doing business worth 39 billion. Imagine they are not here on Kenya Invest. Nobody on Kenya Invest knows them. Chamber of Commerce, not even the Polish embassy here knows that they are in this country. The other question that makes it even funny, None of the media houses has taken time to even go to the website of this company. You know, when I tell you I do arms business,
yes.
Just a minute. When I tell you I do arms business, I expect you to be a well-established company. You have supplied ABCD places. But back here, because the politics of the day are a bit convenient for us.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it puts the media in a funny situation because the media has a role to play
Yes.
in even democratizing this nation and bringing forth some issues.
Kipchumba, let me hold you on that point because to be fair to him, as one of those who've done the stories, and this particular one that I actually pointed to, in one of the lines, the nation has been unable to find the digital footprint of Echo Advanced Technologies LLC. It does not have a website, social media accounts, and does not appear on news websites as having provided similar large-scale projects
And
to
Mark,
other countries.
not just that.
Yes.
I think Aaron is a bit unfair and is trying to mislead us. Kipchumba.
Yeah.
Not only that, I think if you've been reading The Nation from, I think, last week, on Tuesday, a story I did, we went beyond what was being peddled and tried to look at the ownership of Apex and whether Apex indeed exists as a business entity in this country. And yesterday's story, we told how actually the owners of Apex, one of them in the ownership structure is listed as a Kenyan. It's on the papers, unless he hasn't read. And today's story, we still unmasked the owners of Pizel.
Yes.
Yeah, the ones who were arrested yesterday.
And on that particular note, now I'd want to bring in Alphonse on this and whether or not he feels that we have been stuck up on inanities, perhaps, if you call it that. But then there's a prominent name that is there. You can't ignore it. Give us a balance. And then
so what you have done just right now by holding him to account is when you look at the kind of talk that is peddled when you invite guests and politicians in panels, you get these sweeping statements that the media is not covering A, the media is not covering B. But the fact of the matter is, if you have consistently been reading The Nation or the newspapers, you would see that journalists have put their best to find out who are these people behind these companies, where the company is registered. They even go to open source databases to try and find out if these companies exist wherever they say they exist. So on that score alone, we should be vigilant on this side. When we put people, when we're interviewing people, we should be vigilant that they do not make blanket statements and then these blanket statements are taken as truth. We should challenge those narratives. Now, to your question about whether the media has been stuck up on a name or what. So what I do right now, I deal with facts, and I don't usually care how people dress those facts as long as they stick to what the facts are. So what are the facts? There was a meeting. All the parties involved admit there was a meeting.
Yes.
Where was the meeting held? The Deputy President's office. How long did the meeting last? 23 minutes, they say. Did they meet the Deputy President? They say no. So we don't know. So the Deputy President himself says he wasn't met.
Yes.
Yes. But the question you have to ask yourself, and this is the question the people in my circles ask, is why would a former sports cabinet secretary carry investors to the Deputy President's office to discuss military tenders? So the answer, you could think, maybe it's because the Deputy President sits in the National Security Council. But why are they going to him? Why would they go directly to the DCI? That's the kind of question that Achuka would want to answer, or the people who are reading the newspapers would want that question answered.
Yes.
The answer to that question, most people know, and that's why you see the story about deals.
Yes. Cartels.
Yes, cartels and deals.
Association to power.
Yes, but on that note, I will be venturing into the investigative bit, which is not my forte, and I have no information about what happens in that. But all I know is you try and stick to the facts, and whether you use the Deputy President's name on the front page, or not, you're just reporting the facts. Now, can the deputy president, if he feels unfairly targeted, the way most of the people say, most of the people in Eldoret say that he's unfairly targeted, there are mechanisms within the Media Council where he can make a formal complaint, and the media houses will be dealt with. I am not sure that Achuka or the journalists in these media houses can be very reckless to make allegations on the paper when they know the sanctions that are attached.
We'll get to that because there's someone who
yes.
had not too nice words to say about the headlines. And Mutemi, what's your reading of this?
I'd like to support what the two gentlemen have reiterated. First of all, the DP's office is a security installation. You can access, an ordinary Kenyan can access some levels of that building. But there is a level at which either you can't access unless he or his PA or someone very close to him allows you that space. And the boardroom, which I think I've been to that boardroom when the former Prime Minister used to occupy that office, that Harambee House Annex. So as Shundu has pointed out, that raises questions.
So we're not belaboring the point by talking about, hey, this meeting was held at the deputy president.
I mean, you don't get to access, especially if you're a former sports minister who was fired. First of all, he was fired for inappropriate. I mean, he's supposed to have done some inappropriate things. So even him accessing government installations would be, curious. Why would he have that level of access? So there's that question that needs to be answered.
The narrative of political games or political scores being settled.
So
and,
if you
and
go,
the media being used.
If you go with the facts, as Shundu was pointed out, he's a former sports minister. He has no access to that office. He had access at that time. He left under a cloud. It is known. So the narrative has already been framed around Tanga and Kieleweke. We know he's a Tanga.
And he's a good friend of the deputy president. He said it on record.
So there's no dispute around that. Then everything else is inference. But then if we dig deeper into this, like what are all these scandals, so-called scandals and deals, what are they about? There's a video I watched earlier on, a young man online, analyzing the issue of wealth and wealth creation. And in short, what he said is this, that if you look at, if you want to understand a country, you need to look at the 25 wealthiest people in that country, or the 25 most prominent companies, organizations in that country. And you give an example, if you look at the US, the list of billionaires, if you look at who's the top billionaire, Jeff Bezos, if you look at Elon Musk.
Bring it home.
Bill Gates and all those. There are people who have created value for the citizens of that country. For example, you've created, or Mark Zuckerberg, you've created Facebook, you've created Windows, which is selling all over the world, and you sell it at a reasonable price and almost everybody can afford it, and you become a billionaire. The alternative is in the poor countries. Those are the wealthy countries. In the poor countries, the top 25 richest people, if you ask what they've produced, there's nothing. Most of them get tenders to supply things to government, like now this kind of deal. Military equipment, you have black budgets in the military where we don't know. I think last time I heard the military was allocated 250 billion. We don't know how that money is spent. So when you ask these questions and you see people like, you read such stories like a Cheza, then you start wondering, because it's if you're a Kenyan and you want to make money very fast, you need to know someone in government, someone in power who gives you a tender and you get a cut.
Yes.
We all know that.
Yes.
Just
I wanted you to bring it home.
Yeah, let me bring it home.
Break. Yeah.
So knowing all that, that we are in one of those, I don't know whether I can use this word on whatever hole, X-hole in countries in Africa, whereby the more closer you are to power, or the better you are at stealing and ensuring that those in power benefit from that stealing, the higher you rise. We're actually a country of killers and looters. The better a killer or looter you are, the higher you rise. You either become a governor or a deputy president or a president or something. And I'm saying this with a straight face. The more
and with facts to back it.
I mean, all these stories. I mean, all these stories that we may not have the facts set. Now, the last thing I want to say is this. Now, the media, where does the media come in? If you look at the headlines last week, the last 1 week, there's the headline, and then there's the kicker. Now, most Kenyans read only that, whether it's been shared on social media or you can't afford to buy a newspaper, so you read it in the streets. So what he has written inside with details never gets read or never gets analyzed. Yes. So where the media then would be questioned is these sensational headlines that you're putting and the kicker, because it says it gives a certain impression. This is what most of the guys you've interviewed actually are judging this story based on. So it becomes, someone was telling me, actually what these guys are doing, you're making the deputy president very popular because you're creating a victim mentality. And I saw that in those interviews. They actually, a lot of Kenyans think he's being victimized because of politics, and there could be something in that.
But I mean, of course, the thinking around such headlines is to get your attention, and hopefully that you'll open the pages, buy the paper, open the pages, get the details.
Unfortunately,
so is it? And you can't write the full paragraph.
You can't put everything there. Yes. But unfortunately, we are living in a different era from the time the journalism that you're practicing came to be. There was no social media. So social media is able to pick that and spin it and run with it, and it becomes propaganda. And another thing, I think the thing about Jubilee and its efficiency from 2013 with Cambridge Analytica is being able to run hashtag campaigns, sponsored hashtags. So actually, I think the deputy president is a victim of his own success because he was behind all that. Him and Itumbi and the others were behind all those sponsored hashtags, and now they've gotten Kenya weighted on that appetite of just sensation. Just in fact, I think even most media houses just drop that front page on Twitter, on WhatsApp, and it's circulates. Nobody bothers what the story inside is. So unfortunately for you, I personally haven't read your story with the facts. I've just seen those headlines. So
this is
quite. So you have to figure out how do you go beyond that sensation, because we pick your images, your media images, small clips of videos, and people run with them.
But I don't think this means that we'll change the headlines in terms of how we go about it professionally, how we were taught to go with the headline and then the kicker, as he calls it. We'll still stick to that. It doesn't mean that we're not going by the facts.
No, we're still going by the facts.
Yes.
It actually depends on which newspaper you choose to read. Honestly, the one I work for, I think you're trying to go beyond everything else. Because people will say, I don't know, this narrative is being, I've seen this, is being sponsored by the DCI. I've seen at some point even people who support Ruto at some point could hashtag me for I don't know what. And I haven't seen anywhere where actually the DCI today spoke for the first time about this matter. And I think people...
The question is, though, is who's feeding you with this information? Yeah. Are you being led by the nose by the DCI? Because if you are and just churning out whatever the DCI is giving you without countering or checking with other sources, then that's the question they're putting out there.
I think people need to understand the science of how these stories are researched and how they are written eventually, what comes out on the paper. Unlike what most people think, actually the DCI rarely speaks about this because he's in charge of a whole organization. He's actually not even in charge of this particular investigation himself. There are other people who are doing this. And what crime reporters do when you have been on this beat for a number of years, you know these officers, you call them, we know each other. So when something happens, like when a chaser was arrested, I don't remember Mr. Kinoti calling a press conference and saying, hi, we have arrested a chaser. Actually, we had it at 10 a.m. because I was on the road, that a chaser had been arrested from police sources, not even the DCI himself.
Yes.
Then you verify from another police source, is this actually true and why? And it took actually almost a whole day from 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. in the evening to know why Chesa had been arrested. Because journalists went and camped on Kiambu Road up to I think like 6 p.m. and they were being blocked and no information was coming out.
Yes.
And then the DCI himself found out because there was a bit of a commotion and allowed us to go in. I was not there, but other reporters were there. And that's how then they started asking these questions on what has exactly happened, why has HS been arrested. That's why it took a whole 7 hours for the story to come out.
Sorry to interrupt, and that illustrates the point I was trying to make with the headlines. And because if you had it at 10 and you had access at 6, in terms of social media, that's a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
People created images, photoshopped images, there were online conversations that had been hashtagged, had been sponsored.
But that's when they come, because that's when they come, with all the noise that will be online, they'll come for verification.
And so that's the reason why your role then is, after all that noise, when you're coming in, don't come, so you're talking about headlines now from around midnight, the headlines, the next day's papers. Don't come with the same sensation as what has been canvassed over. I don't know how you guys need to find a way to actually calm down that noise and focus people on the
it is our job to verify. And actually, the people who are saying that the DP is being targeted, I haven't seen any one of them saying, okay, Vincent Achuka, we wrote this is false. This is not true, this is not true. The DP himself on Sunday, I don't know whether he was tweeting on his own or his people were tweeting, he actually said himself, there was a meeting that took place for I don't know, for 23 minutes at his office.
Yes.
He's the one who gave us this information himself. So what was left is us to figure out, was there a meeting? The DP has agreed there was a meeting. Where did it take place?
What did they talk about?
Yes. Which we don't know yet. But we will know in the coming days.
But there is now a twist to this whole story, and an officer who is believed to have been manning the gate, or at least the entrance of the office of the Deputy President on that day that the meeting was held, has been found dead. And Achuka has been following this particular story. We'll be getting pictures from the residents that we had earlier on and continue from there, because that's now how the story will continue to unfold. Stay with us.
Prepare yourself for a new live bet experience. Top minute, boosted live bet odds. Mozart, make a decision.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more, and now you can win.
Kwa majina naitwa Salma Salim, natoka Mombasa County, na mimi ndio mshindi wa nyumba ya Lipa na M-Pesa. Nilikuwa nimelala, nikasikia simu nalia, nikapokea. I was so excited. At the moment, option ya kwanza itakuwa kuirent. Wakenya wote wazidi kushiriki, wataweza kushinda vitu vingi kutoka kwa Safaricom.
Lipa na M-Pesa and win now. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Breaking news out of Washington.
This is John Kale. I'm in the White House. They've taken the building and they're holding hostages, including my daughter.
Alpha 1, do you have the target? Roger that. We're holding the president in the library.
That's the library. My little girl is counting on me right now, and I'm not going to disappear on her.
The explosive used at the Capitol was a diversion.
There's gotta be a bigger play.
Like what?
There's only one way to find out.
Welcome back. Now, earlier today, it was confirmed that a police officer who was attached to the office of the Deputy President, or at least was manning the precinct when the meeting between the former Sports Cabinet Secretary Chesa and some of his accomplices and other dealers in this particular military tender scam had met on Thursday. This policeman was there and he was found dead in his residence in Imara Daima. This was earlier today. And these are pictures from earlier, just next to his residence. And you could tell us, Vincent Achuka, what you've established, and I believe this is one of the leading stories for tomorrow on this.
Yeah, actually it's our headline tomorrow.
Yes.
But this is what happened so far. What we know is that Sergeant, is called John Kipyegon Kene, was on duty on Thursday last week at the DP's office. I think he was one of the guards. Then yesterday, seven of the security officers who were present were supposed to record statements at the DCI. 2 did not turn up. Sergeant Kene is one of them. He gave an excuse that he was not feeling well. Then the other...
He gave an excuse when?
Yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah, that he was not feeling well.
That's at least what you've been told by the sources.
Yeah. And the other officer said that he was supposed to take his kids to school, so they didn't turn up. So we had 5 officers being grilled and 1 secretary. So what happened is after that, I think his friends have been unable to reach him on his mobile phone up to today evening. Then they decided to go to his house to check out. The house is on Trigger Court, in Maradaima Estate. The door was open. Then Sergeant Kene, I think, had 1 gunshot wound from below his chin. The bullet went through his head. So far, we are told there is a bullet hole on the ceiling board. But neighbors say they did not hear a gunshot.
Yes.
Either today or yesterday. So it's still an active investigation. The county commander for Nairobi earlier on said they're treating it as a suicide, but it's still under investigation, and homicide detectives from the DCI have taken over the scene. I think even Mr. Kinoti was there.
Yes, he was. That's actually him in this particular picture.
Yeah, at some point. So we don't know who shot him and why. It could be anyone.
Yes, and of course there's some accounts here with going with what the Star has reported, George Owiti, that his body is apparently was found in a state of decomposure, was decomposing, which goes to tell perhaps it didn't just happen just a few hours ago, but that's still being investigated, and he's said to have been living in a servant's quarter of a main house within Trigger Court.
That's true.
And if you then say that, according to your sources, that he had said yesterday that he would not be able to go because he's unwell, so that means it could have happened over the last few hours, not too long ago.
We don't know.
Yes.
These things, you cannot say it happened either this time or not. There has to be a post-mortem.
Yes, yes.
And all these things to establish the cause of death and the time it might have taken place.
Do we know of the other person who was meant to appear before the DCI to record a statement, and what he was appearing in what capacity?
Also a security guard.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't gotten the name yet.
Yes.
Actually, Sergeant Kene's name came because he has died. You know, when investigations take place, it's very difficult to know exactly this person and this person and this person and this person. They have been questioned. For obvious reasons, because it's an investigation, and you see the nature of this case.
Yes.
It's good that the identity of these people is not known for now.
For now,
yeah.
Okay. Alphonse, from where you sit, what are the leads that you think we should pursue in at least bringing out some clarity from now the developments?
So this particular death of a police officer is one of those that we found somewhat unsettling, because we saw a picture of a body that was going round and it was going viral on social media. And the claim was that the DCI officer in charge of the investigation had been killed. And there were made up quotes citing the Kabete OCPD and other senior officials. And so when we started digging, we found out that it's an old picture that was taken in Zimbabwe in 2018. And somebody has just picked it from the internet and souped it up to tell a story around this narrative. So when this happened, we were very careful to try and verify first that is this person dead. Now, the thing with social media and around such stories, these are very sensitive stories. This is someone's father, someone's son, and you have to be very careful not to comment about the cause of death, because they are asking questions right now. They are asking questions: what could have happened? How could he have died? Is there a link between what the investigation right now and whatnot? So I would like to take a pass on that until the investigators do their job.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Kiama, what is
yeah,
comes
so
to mind in this particular
the thing with death is that it's so final. So we know that this police officer was on duty at the time when the office was allegedly accessed, and now he's dead. So we can never know, we will never know whether he was authorized or whether he did it himself, allowing the former minister to access that office. So that's the sad thing, is that that's done. The other sad thing is that in Kenya we just let, for example, we just let things go. Last week we witnessed a whole week of mourning of a Kenyan who died after 95 years. This guy most probably will not be mourned apart from by his family, which is a sad thing about Kenya. And the fact that he would have answered so many things already starts to make this whole saga go away. I mean, we can start imagining that nothing will be done, will not get to the bottom of this. Propagandists will play around with it from whichever side. And I think for the media, what I would say is that the media needs to continue doing what it's doing,
and to follow
which
through
is
on
asking questions.
Yes.
We have so many issues around the DP. The DP has declared he wants to be president through 2022. So we actually need more scrutiny, not less scrutiny, as some people are saying.
Yes. But in and of itself, it's not.
I mean, there are many stories from the raid at his home in Sugoi to all these things that keep, you say, where they smoke, there's fire. Why do these stories keep coming up about him? And why are they not being interrogated to the point where we can actually dismiss them and say, the DP is clean, all these things is...
where there's smoke, there's fire. There's probably
issue, for example,
who started the fire somewhere.
Yeah,
with an interest as well, to counter his interest.
Yeah, Muteshi's land, was it returned? Has the media told us about that? I'm not saying we know what the court ruled. What is the story since then? Has there been that follow-up? Can the media please follow up on that and tell us what happened? That raid in Sugoi home. What about the net worth? There's a question he's been asked. I think you've asked him severally. What is his net worth? He's never answered that question. It's been asked on BBC. So if that's the media's role to ask these questions and to try and find these answers from him.
All right.
So as for the young man, I'd like to just pass my condolences to the family. And hope that, unlike Msando, we'll get to the bottom of this.
Kipchumba, you say you know the late Kene.
I think to pick it from where Mutemi is picking it, I think there are things that we must recognize what the media has done. On the Muteshi land, I think if you just do a fact check on Google, the thing has been, it's dry now, it has been overdone. The media did after whatever the land was given back and all that. So I think on that one, you cannot begrudge the media. Two, as to whether the issue, there has always been the issue of the worth of our politicians. I know it is a question, it is nearly as contentious as the question of who wins elections in this country. The two are in the same sentence. But Mutemi, that question should be subjected to all politicians. Yes. Show me one interview where anybody has asked Musalia Mudavadi's worth. Isn't it unsettling that it was always directed, I think, to two presidential candidates?
I think
Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Why not the rest? Nobody has ever asked Abdul Badida how much he's worth.
I can respond to that. Let me respond to that, because the way you've asked it, is that on these shows, the particular shows where that question comes up, it's actually the DP who organizes, tells us to watch. So you should be ready to, even when you went to his home, you should be ready to respond to those questions. Musalia Mudavadi has never invited us to watch him.
But we've had interviews with him, and actually that issue has been brought up in interviews with him. Yes. But besides that, it's probably not as interesting to people as that Musalia's versus Ruto's.
Yeah,
let's stick to this particular story.
Yes. It is now for Vincent Achuka and other people to bring it out now. It might be not interesting to them, but it is interesting to us as consumers of
So you want us to go and ask people what property?
No.
Let's go back. Let's bring it back to Echesa and to this particular story and the latest development of the dying of. Yes.
It is unfortunate and unsettling. I think from where I sit, it's add more puzzles to what the puzzle fear we already have now. I know, and it is unfortunate that this thing will be run by propagandists with hashtags, but somebody has lost their father, a lady has been widowed, a child has been left without a father. That is the bitter part. And just like all the other stories, just like Musando, just like all the people who came, we do not know how they disappeared. And I hope there'll come a time where closure will be in this country, where somebody dies in a publicized manner, the whole thing is sensationalized, and it just dies off. Who knows to date where the Musando inquest has reached? The media has not come back to tell us where the Musando inquest has reached. You told us on the beginning, but to where we are, the media rarely reports about inquest. Very few. And you can check with your media houses. They rarely even attend those inquest proceedings in court to know what really happened. And I think it is a place now, Vincent and your people, you can venture into. It is a good place. But to this, it is unfortunate. And
I think he wants to respond to something. He's taking a note down on that point you raised.
So there's something we usually hear, that the media never does this, never does that, never does this. There are court reporters who are always in court following these things from A to Z, from the moment they begin to the time they end. I'm not here to defend the media or the journalists, but if you're going to make such an assertion, just say we have not seen it on this and this and this. What I'm what I'm trying to do right now is, somebody like Mark here, who has access to the internet, can quickly Google and tell you that this inquest has been covered every day. It's just not front page news, but it's always somewhere in the newspaper. Now, the challenge, and that is what Mutemi was saying, is unfortunately, the people who read newspapers are very few. Most read the headlines, and they walk around as if they know what the story is. The gaps are filled by WhatsApp, they are filled by Facebook, and they are filled by Twitter. And when they walk around, they say, oh, the media did not cover this story. We've seen it when the issue about the road in, is it Mwiki? The one where, Kasarani, where it was being, Kasarani Mwiki Road, where it was being said that the media has not covered, has ignored those people. And the stories were written from day one when there was a problem on that road. It's just that they were not prominent. And when action was not being taken, when there was a groundswell and perspective was being put into that story, it managed to get itself into the prominence of news. So that's the kind of thinking, journalists in this country work very hard to get good stories to the public. The challenge is not all those stories are read. Not very many people read, and it's a challenge. You ask yourself, 75% of the country is under 35.
Yes.
Now, when you're looking at such numbers, how do you communicate to that demographic? How do you communicate to the Instagram generation? How do you make them care? That's the kind of conversations that are going on internally within the media circle.
Okay.
Sometimes, just to conclude, sometimes propaganda, false information is sweeter, and it's sweeter than anything else. So it's the laziest thing, and most of
to just push forward as received.
Yes, forward as received. And most of the politicians have people who build narratives around events, and they know that people will read just an image.
Yes.
So they do an image, put a caption quickly, and spread it on WhatsApp, and it goes like.
And on that note, Achuk, and I don't know if you guys have been following any leads on this particular development, there were pictures and a story of supposed aide from DP's office who was involved in a very fatal car crash and died, passed on. It was very ugly. And now someone is actually asking me, could there be a linkage on this particular? I don't know if it's something that you have followed and pursued, perhaps just to clear the air on if it's anything to do with this, because it will come in.
No, there is no link at all. And
yes.
That guy is not even an aide of the DP.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a confusion about the identity of the guy who died on a car crash.
Yes, Langata Road.
Yeah, I've forgotten his name. But
Rono.
No, it's not Rono. We got his name on Monday or on Tuesday.
Okay. Right. The name that was being pushed out was a DP staff member, a particular Rono. And of course, as people would go with this, now a security officer has passed on, it can be passed on as, now there's a case being built, people are dying who are attached to the DP's office. But at least you've confirmed this was not in any way
No,
related.
not in any way. I think the biggest problem is, like, media houses are competing with bloggers, they're competing with everybody else who thinks they have followers and they have information and they can put that out.
And actually everybody is competing to break the story.
Yeah,
That is where the danger is.
Yeah, everybody wants to be famous.
Okay. And that's an indictment on the media, as Shundu has just said. The fact that the bread and butter stories, the ones that concern Kenyans, are in the back pages. The political sensationalist stories.
He's
are in the
misquoting
front
me.
That's
he's re-quoting you to fit his thinking.
I'm contextualizing this. That since Kiama beat a dog does not sell. No, if a dog bites me, it cannot be a headline. But if I bite that dog, it becomes a headline. That's a media mantra. So just contextualizing what he's saying. If these stories have been written about Mweki, for example, I didn't know they had been written. I know that's something that has been happening for about 3 years. But I didn't know that there are journalists who have been following
That was to
it
answer
up.
the question that perhaps the criticism, you don't report on this until it's a big story, but you've actually been reporting on it consistently until it becomes something that is.
When we look at the Daily
public
Nation
discourse.
headlines last 3 weeks, and the Standard last 3 weeks, and the Star last 3 weeks, it will be either Ruto, Raila, or Uhuru.
Those more as well. But anyway,
so the rest of Kenya, 47 million of us are in those 1-inch columns that nobody reads.
Okay,
I think also, to be fair to even leaders and politicians, just for the Mwiki Kasarani one, I think the media did a great job. But there is the other point now. If the road was developed or something was done, it is also on the media to report so that people can know that picketing and demonstrating has positive
But it
results.
was, because it will actually reflect well on
I
us.
think
It does.
is a good thing
and it was done.
going
And it was
forward,
done.
so that people can know that protecting their rights by just picketing or demonstrating.
We're getting off course
has
now to
results.
the Mwiki Kasarani story, because that it actually reflects well to us if we report on it having improved after consistent reportage, because it shows impact journalism. So that has been done. But we come back to this particular story with a lot of the quotes against the media on the military scam or military tender scam. 39.5 billion shillings worth of it, or at least what would have been worth of this particular scam that was nipped in the bud, if you'd say so, but a lot is still in the air in terms of the details, and this is a story that's in the public discourse for many.
In a trap house.
Una expect nani ya clean you uchafu iko hapa?
You.
Na kambocho wako?
Yes. University policy is to suspend student with fallacious charges and unproven accusations.
Unproven accusations? Your daughter tested positive for amphetamines, particularly meth.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
I think if you look at this headline by the Standard, the only person we should be asking to resign is the editor of the Standard newspaper. Because when you say conned in 23 minutes, 39 fake arms scam, once it reveals that the editors of the Standard Group are so ignorant or think that Kenyans are so foolish that they can put a headline like this and expect to get away with it. First of all, we know if they did a little research, they would find out how money is spent in government. So it is not just that easy to take money from government or to sign a contract. The contract needed to have been in the budgetary estimates that came before Parliament during the budgetary hearings, and in fact to the extent that there is an exact amount put for it and a procurement process undertaken. And after the procurement process is undertaken, then an invoice is given to the relevant authorities, and from that, the money is then wired out of CBK. So it is not that easy. You cannot con Kenya in 23 minutes, no matter how...
That was on Monday on AM Live, and the Wazingishu woman representative Gladys Boss-Sholay having one or two things to say about the Standard. And this is actually the story that she was referring to. DP admits to a 23-minute meeting at his annex office, and it was headlined as "Gone in 23 Minutes." And you spoke as you were listening to this, and you've done a story before in terms of military procurement and indeed what would happen in this. First of all, was this headline misleading, and what do you have to say about Boshole's.
If she reads the story, who was conned? It's not Kenya that has been conned. If she reads the story, there are people who have been conned,
yes.
But it's not the government. So number one, she's misrepresenting the content of the story. Number two, when she talks about military procurement and the budgeting process and all that, that is something that goes through a budgeting life cycle from September until July when the budget is read.
Yes.
Now, the thing with this story, it's not a story about military procurement per se. It's a story that has been made around military procurement. So when you talk about military procurement, DOD, their budget, the only thing we know about the budgets of DOD, the budgets of NIS, is that they get this much money. We do not know what goes to what money. And that is, and we have tried before with the Auditor General's reports to try and see where we can get the details. But we have a new Public Audit Act, which now says that only senior people at the Auditor General would do the auditing of the military and national security spending at NIS. So that becomes a problem.
Okay.
But perhaps because of this racket, this thing that has been ongoing with HSA and the team, it is perhaps a time that the Budget Committee of Parliament and the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations and the Committee on National Security,
yes,
together they can sit and say, we need to try some kind of transparency on military procurement within reasonable limits, so that we do not jeopardize national security, but we also give as much information as possible. It is not proper that every year, every day, we keep hearing the government is buying planes, the government is buying air tractors, the government is buying. And you look at the military budget from 2011 to 2020, and you see how many times it has increased. Yes, we are at war in Somalia, but there is so much money that has been pumped into the military, but there is an opacity around how they account for it.
Yes.
So those are the kind of things that this is an opportunity where, as journalists, as people in the civil society, this is an opportunity to push for some kind of transparency. And if the budget committee, because right now they are starting, the budget policy statement is already in Parliament and they are looking at it. Now, they can take that opportunity to say, okay, we're giving the military this much money, but we don't know where it's spent. We have a very small Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations. They can listen, they can talk to the military, they know where this money goes.
Yes.
But then how does that information get communicated to us outside here so that we know how taxpayers' money is spent?
But at no point, Achuka, did we create the impression that money was actually lost, at 39.5 billion shillings on this particular story, even though it's being named as a military tender scam.
Yeah. But when you say no money was lost, actually no public money was lost. That's a fact. The facts of the matter are these. One, fellows wrote to a company known as Apex and told them we have a military tender that we want to give to you.
Yes.
Then Apex agreed. Then they were brought in and told, for you to get this tender, you need to hire us as consultants because we know our way through the military circles and government circles. So, and they allegedly gave out 11.5 million for
facilitation.
Yeah, for facilitation. And then they were given a fake tender. And from how I understand it is they were also told there's a 10% rule in this country where immediately you get a tender, before you start supplying, you need to give us 10%. 10% of 39 billion is roughly 3.9 billion. It did not get to that point because the people were arrested. Those are the facts as they are. As to whether Apex Advanced Technologies is a military supplier is another story altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, because we tried looking for its blueprint. You know, any company that has the ability of doing such big tenders, especially military tenders, at least they must have a newsprint on the internet. It's very easy to search for them.
But there's no footprint on the interwebs to find out.
We came and realized they have some website which is very opaque, that you cannot even see whatever they are doing. Then when you're told they were supposed to supply goods to the military, then it gets jumbled up.
Do you feel duty-bound in any way to clarify whether indeed the deputy president, whether or not his office was involved in this particular deal? Is it in your place, or would you rather just let it play out as it would? Because his name has been dragged into this particular story.
And at some point, he dragged himself into the story. I think that's what people are forgetting. But the point of the matter is this. His name has only been dragged for 2 reasons. There was an alleged meeting, actually it's 3 reasons, at his office on the 2nd floor of Harambee Annex. Mr. Rashid Echesa was arrested just after leaving his office. There is CCTV footage to show actually that Rashid was in that building and on that floor, and on the VIP waiting lounge, something of that sort. Then number 3, Mr. Echesa is actually a very close ally of the DP.
The deputy president.
The burden lies on the DP to exonerate himself.
Yes.
He has tried so far.
As of yesterday.
But he's doing it so badly, if you ask me.
Okay. Real quick, and then Kichumba.
On that point, on the clip that you just showed us of Gladys Sholay, I guess that's an attempt at the exoneration that you're talking about, because we also know which side politically she lies. We also know she has integrity issues around the judiciary. That's why she was kicked out of the judiciary. And of course, once there are allegations of you having stolen a lot of money in Kenya, we elect you senator or governor, like my governor in Kirinyaga, and Waiguru. So
you better be ready to back it up with facts.
No. I mean, the allegations of
theft,
allegations. Once the allegations of theft, that you've stolen a lot of money, Kenyans welcome you with open arms to become their leader.
Okay.
So, but to say that, just another point I wanted to stress, and remember I spoke about the sensationalism in the headlines. Actually, that's one of the...
Gone in 23 minutes.
Yeah. And then that does not back up. So the impression it gives, because the picture of the DP is there, is that it's the DP who conned Kenya. But when you dig into the story is totally different. It's who was conned. It's actually the white people who were conned.
Right.
But then when you ask yourself, who owns the Standard Group? Then that becomes very interesting, because we know it's the Moi family, and they are rivals with the DP in the Rift Valley of politics of 2022. Then now it becomes murky. Unfortunately, the DP's office also plays this game, I think, which is why it's very hard for him to extricate himself from this story. They know how to take those spaces, the media, headline spaces, make sure that he's always the first story, because his media team is very good at that.
They used to work in our newsrooms.
It could even be a story about me, which is the headline, but the picture is the DP's picture is on the Standard or the Nation. I don't know how that happens when there's no relation to the story. So maybe you guys can tell us how that happens.
All right, Kipchumba.
I think when you bring politics to the whole issue, we lose the point of who the con were, where they came from. And that is where it becomes murkier, as the panelists have said before me. The problem is here, Mark. We are talking about a web of racketeers. I'll call them racketeers because these are people, they are scammers who are scamming other scammers. So you get lost in the woods. When you bring it now to our politics and the 2022, it becomes even cloudy. The issue is this. There is an headline I read on Sunday. It was a very sensational headline, but the story was around 9 paragraphs inside there, and the story was from one source. When you read such a story, you go home with an hangover. You don't understand where is the other side of the story. You see, those are the things that ask us question the media. At times you ask yourself, what is this about? Because when you give me a shouting headline about conned in the name of William Ruto, I expect to see something deeper, you see. And when you give such a story, there's also the other part. Why don't you call? There were 3 faces there: Ken Osinde, Farouk Kibet, and somebody, Ruben Mayo. In all these, there was nowhere that we tried reaching out to Ken Osinde, but his phone was unanswered, or we texted him, he could not answer our message. So when you read the story, all you read is just that an anonymous source from DCI. At times, we have to go deeper than that.
Okay.
We might be after prominence and after the profits, but at the end of the day, make Kenyans ask the hard questions. And even after learning from the whole HS and the scamming saga, what we must come out, and the media must now take us from where we are, is what next? I think it is time now, as Shundu is talking about, is it time we look at our military procurement laws? The other thing, is it even time we tell Kenyans who procures in the military? It is not such a national issue when we say it is the generals or the PS. Two, allow parliament. These people have taken the oath of secrecy. They cannot, they know they cannot jeopardize national security.
Yes.
Allow them to scrutinize and oversight some of those budgets in the military. It is time now we learn from whatever has happened. Two, it is time we ask ourselves, when a foreigner is coming here, and it is for Ochuka, Vincent, to tell the people, when a foreigner is coming here, how do they come around? So that tomorrow when I see a man turning up in my village in Tuyo Bay, saying I am an investor, I ask, has he been through this and this? Those are the questions we must now gather, or lessons we must gather from this process moving forward.
Right.
And two, I think also finally, Mark, Kenyans never learn that by mixing politics and these issues, we lose the whole thing. It is at the end of the day, Kenyans who wanted to know what happens in the, what really happened, even in the 23 minutes, what really happened. In the 6 months that the racket has been going on, Kenyans want to know what really happened until a man showed up with a general military regalia.
Yes.
Those are the questions now the media should come in
Yes.
and fill in.
All right, and to something else that also played out and we got a lot of flack for, and on Tuesday we spoke exclusively to Rashid Echesa, who invited us to his home, and he gave some revelations, at least what we termed as his side of the story, and this is just an excerpt of that interview.
This narrative of 40 billion, I don't know where it's coming from. I have never signed a contract, and if there is one that I signed, law is very clear. Or rather, I want to challenge the DCI to publish those signatures. Stan has been my friend for the last 6 years. Stan's mother knows me as Stan's friend. My mother knows Stan. My family here knows Stan. Stan has been coming here on a tourism visa. I have never known that Stan has been doing business around here, because to my understanding, I knew Stan did not have a working permit. Deputy President is my friend. We've been friends for a very long time. I don't need even an appointment to see the Deputy President. He's my friend. And to add on that, I've been a cabinet minister in this government. So if someone wants to tell me that people we've been doing deals, let them table evidence.
It is reported that you already received about 11.5 million shillings from Stan, who is your friend, you say. What then was...
I saw that in the papers.
You did not receive any money from him?
I want to be very clear. It was reported that Stan deposited to a certain firm that money. Pizzle or something. Yes. Number one, I have never owned a company called Pizzles. I am not a director of Pizzles. And when I was being charged in court, I never saw a director of Pizzles, because it has been purported that the money was wired to Pizzles' account.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
This is not the first time you're being accused of committing fraud. Yes, because we remember there was the gold issue in Ruiru, and your name was put in there as well. So what then is it about you? Why do you feel that you're an easy target?
Why was I not charged? I'm not above the law. If there was gold in Ruiru, if there was fake money in Ruiru, it was even purported that I own a house in Ruiru, right? Why was I not charged? Am I above the law? Because to my understanding, there are people who were arrested with those fake money, with those gold things, and they were arraigned in court. Did you saw me in court? Yeah, it's all propaganda, and it's pure politics. Yeah.
That was Tuesday night, and one of the contributors to Press Pass, David Makali, and also a senior in the profession, says unless they bring, that is NTV, bring the Mzungu version of the scam, this exclusive actually sucks. It should form a good case study for media and washing machines. And then he said he can't wait for this episode. And in living true to our own mantra of being candid and critiquing the media, we'll bring it to ourselves. And I'll put it to the panel. In this particular issue, is it true, from your perspective, that this was one to sanitize Echesa? Would you grant him an interview?
No, especially after he's been charged. Right?
There's no trial yet. The trial hasn't started.
Yeah, but he has said he's not guilty. Obviously, when you interview him, he's going to say he's not guilty. So there will be no change. But from whatever Makali is saying, I think the Wazungus were given their chance last Friday or Thursday. They were on all TV stations and all newspapers where they gave out their version of events.
Okay, so unless, and he was saying unless it's their exclusive interview one-on-one, he doesn't see added value to this. Alphonse, from where you sit?
Would I grant Echesa?
At this particular time, or how would it go different if it was you on the other side of that interview, talking to him?
So there are questions, and I like that the interviewer asked some very pertinent questions. Those questions are some of the questions that people were waiting to hear from him to answer. Now, at this particular time, for a person like Echesa, it is very difficult for you to know the truth. He will spin it the way he wants. So that makes it's not a very good time to interview him, because when he spins, he's putting out his story out there. Now, at what point, when you get the facts, at what point would you come and challenge him? Because he will say, now this matter is in the courts. He's put his version, and then, so when you want to grill him, he will say, this matter is in the courts, let it be dealt in the courts. Putting him there, I don't know, it's an editorial decision that you make as you move on. So people will criticize it. Yeah, would I do it? Yes, I would do it if I get the chance to interview somebody who's alleged to have masterminded. Yeah, that thing. I would interview. I would interview them.
First Kipchumba, then Mwalimu, on this particular issue of sanitizing this particular subject on this story.
I will answer it on two fronts.
Yes.
As a lawyer, no.
But the trial is not.
No, I'm saying if I were Chesa's counsel, or if I were to advise him as a lawyer, just in the streets, I would not have advised him to do this interview. Okay. But if I were in the shoes of a journalist, I will do it, and for the following reasons. One, a media house is not an extension of a court of law. It should be known. It is not here to give people sides that you should, that because we are interviewing Mark Masai, we should interview him with Ken Ochuka. This is not a debate class. It is the media is in the business of bringing out the truth. It had interviewed, the papers had splashed whatever the Stan Konwiski or the other one were saying. That was enough. And if they could not come on a live interview, that was different. So it was just right for NTV to do that. And if NTV had not done it, any other media would have done it. The other thing is this. There are questions there which did not come out, or the lady asked, but you did not put it on air. The first question was, what was Echesa doing in Poland? I will have asked that question. The second question will be this: in the 23 minutes, account for us, sir. That's the other thing. The other question also will have been, yes, he has talked about the issue of his knowledge of a gentleman known as Stan and these other things. The follow-up question will be, you have said he has been your friend for 6 years and you have never known him to do military business. Which business has he been doing? And what has he been doing here on a tourism visa for 6 years?
Tosha. Yes, Achuka, you wanted to rejoin, and then Mwalimu.
Yeah, I think if Karori is a lawyer, as he says, he's not being honest with us, because we don't have an issue with interviewing Echesa, actually. The problem is him being interviewed after he has taken a plea. Because you know what happens. If the case is already in court, you let matters go, be reported as they are in court. And he's a suspect in this case. And actually, any judge can call you and tell you I think there's a law, they call it sub judice.
Sub judice, and that's why I
Something
said
of
as
that.
a lawyer,
sub judice if the
that's
trial
why
isn't
I
on.
said as a lawyer, I wouldn't advise. Even if I'm not his lawyer, even on the streets, I will not advise Acheza for the interview.
Okay.
But as a journalist, it will be a different fit.
Yes, all right. Mwalimu.
It's good that you have a lawyer and a journalist on the panel. Because one thing this regime has been very good at, and especially on the side of the DP, even when he was when there were no fights in Jubilee, they were very efficient at trying matters in the court of public opinion. Like now, there's a campaign that has been running for several years, calling the trying to discredit the judiciary, and I have no doubt that it is sponsored by the state. I think they went to the point of even hanging banners in the streets like activists the other day, 2 weeks ago. So there's that attempt to discredit the judiciary, discredit, try matters in the court of public opinion, and this is the the realm of PR and propaganda, and Jubilee has perfected that. I think they used to do that. That was the Cambridge Analytica. Now that's what I was saying, that these guys have become so good at it that now it's biting them. Yeah. So Kenyans now believe what the hashtag says rather than what the facts are in the story that he has written. And so we are looking at all these things and biting them rather than going into the depth of these issues, whether the DP was involved, whether Chesa, as he's saying, even journalists, I think I've gone to a point of some of the journalists don't even ask in-depth questions. I've sat in spaces whereby we actually give journalists questions to ask, because whatever quality of questions they're asking, we want to put out a point, but it's not being asked. Either the journalists are intimidated by the panel, or I've sat in a space where we are with let me just mention the name, my former boss John Gidongo.
Yes.
And I think he's he's a larger than life figure, and the journalists are just intimidated.
Yeah. And
you have to go and ask him this question so that he can respond to that question.
Okay.
So that we've been having those issues of whereby Kenyan, the short life of social media catches up even with these politicians.
Okay.
As they said, they are paid bloggers. They are paid hashtags.
Yes.
that are controlling the news cycle. Before you do a story between 10 and 6, a lot of stories have been done, fake ones and real ones. So I think what the media needs to figure out is, and even working with some of the people who want to get factual stories out, I look for, I've taken down posts that I've done because of maybe there was sensation, or I could not verify whether it was true. So there are some of us even on the social media space who are looking for that factual information to put it out there, because we want Kenyans to engage with.
All right, let me give the last word here for all my panelists. Given where the story has reached right now, and the interest that it's drawn, where should we take it? I'll start with you and end with you from the panel.
I think so far the story took a sensational nature, and where we are, what the media should do, because we live in a country whereby stories have the Makonde kind of days. They just wake up and disappear. It doesn't take 2 weeks. It is very rare. Apart from the retired President Moi, it is rare for a story to run its course for 2 weeks. Even the Golden Bag, the Anglo-Leasing, they were covered for a few days and they were left, we went to other things. But now,
Anglo-Leasing, just a few days.
It took a long time, but the issue is, in terms of being on the top menu, it did not last for long. With time, it became a kicker. Over time, it found itself in page 5. It disappeared to the middle of the newspaper. But the thing is this, moving forward, what we should get from the media is those questions that the Kenyans are asking for. Those small, the lacuna, the bigger story left. When we are done with the law of prominence, as the people went to journalism school will say, let us now get down to facts. Was there a tender? Did anybody visit DOD? What was the meeting in KICC doing? These people, what were they discussing in Hemingway's?
A common Monanchi question is a DP involved? Because
yes, actually, we are getting there. Yeah. We are asking what was the interest of the DP in this case, what was the interest of the generals, and then they have the bigger question now, Was there actually a deal in the first place? Because it might be an issue of smoke and mirrors. Somebody saying I paid 11 million here. Have we seen the account details of where the money went? Those are the small things, so that we do not fall into the temptation of the people who want to shape a narrative or who want to run a narrative of something else.
Okay, thank you, Kipchumba. To you, Mwalimu.
So, court of public opinion, paid hashtags, paid articles, paid features in the media, and the only people who can afford this is politicians. So we are on a constant cycle of politics. I think Shundu mentioned this time maybe the media figures out how to make the story of potholes in Mweki sensational so that they make the headlines, and we push the politicians to the backstory. Then maybe people will not be entrapped.
There's no need to sensationalize something to replace something.
If this is
bear the facts.
If this is facts, yes, yeah. But it's the way you serve them. Okay. I mean, you can have beef or chicken.
Got you.
Depending on who prepares it and how it's prepared, it can look attractive or it can look unattractive. It's the same chicken that was slaughtered. So how do we get, because Kenyans want to engage with the issues that matter to them. They want to know, have water, affordable food, transport, the roads need to be good, our taxes being used for the right things. But then we constantly being fed with this story. Now it becomes psychological, whereby you actually, I've seen people, the way people are addicted as smokers or some addicted to tea or coffee, that people are addicted to 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock news. You could be seated in a public space or like a pub or a restaurant, and if you don't switch to news, some people will get sick.
Yes.
Switch to news. So we need to maybe part of avoiding this sensation and being able to focus on the real issues is the politicians need to stop paying for those front pages, because I know they're paying. They're paying. We know what brown envelopes are.
They're paying. So for this instance, do you know who's paying Nation?
No,
we're here. Yes. Just tell us.
I'm here to say this because I know you guys can't say it. I know you guys can't say it, so I'll say it. I'll say it on behalf of Kenyans who are watching this show. Let's take politics to the back pages. Let's bring the issues that. Why are the locusts? Locusts. I saw. Yes. I saw a very beautiful story the other day, just by accident, because most Kenyans have switched off TVs.
There's that. I was going to counter what you're saying about addicted people.
So there was a story about a lady who's a pilot for KDF. I think it was on Citizen
TV, yes.
Yeah. I was like, wow, what an amazing story. Why isn't this the headline every day? Of such ladies who are doing amazing things. What is it about Kileweke and Tangatanga? The same thing every day. Raila said this, Uhuru said
There's someone in the Vox Pop who said, we are a mirror of the society, and actually it's what people want to see. Is there some truth to that?
I think there's a reason why people have run away from mainstream media to social media.
Okay. All right.
There's a reason, because if you go, and that's why even media has sometimes been caught up by picking up stories on social media and making them headlines when they haven't verified the facts.
All right. Thank you for your contribution. Alphonse?
So I will just be quick. So when they say that we should take politics to the back page, the Nation has been trying to do that. Just this week, NTV and the Daily Nation, they have been running a story about the toxicity in the waters and stuff like that. Yes. And everyone at this point would know that we have no choice but to import fish into Kenya, because for some reason, we don't have enough fish. But the fish that is coming in, the stories say the fish was contaminated.
Yes.
These journalists have done the legwork. They have done the tests. But how many people sat back and said, okay, because of this, how does it affect the person at industrialization? How does it affect the people at fisheries? The people charged to ensure that whatever comes in is good.
Yes.
Yes. So journalists have done their bit. You do not expect them to now start going to the ministries and telling them this is bad, to KEBS, that this is bad, that you need to act and stuff like that. They can. That's now a point where somebody else has to take over. The other thing, and this is are things that we hear, but which we have been unable to prove.
Yes.
So they start as a narrative, and the politicians know how to build narratives. Somebody says, my name is always on the headline because he asks the first time as a question that you mean you guys cannot sell if you don't put my name on the headline. That is decoded by people that without his name on the headline, it's not going to sell. We haven't seen proof that if that name is not on the headline, the sales go down. It's perhaps something that the sales department of media houses, they can do this as a charitable thing. To say, okay, we have splashed this is the much we sold, we splashed this is the much we sold. That is, yes, so that these narratives are either based on facts or it's something that has just been created and is being repeated by people who accuse the media of that thing. And lastly, there is a lot of sophistication in the way the politicians are manipulating content online. So, for example, the picture that was going around about a drone that the minister was inspecting in Poland, you do that picture, like somebody without the skills to fact check would find it very hard because the people who manipulated it flipped it first, so that if you put it directly on the reverse image search, it won't return anything. So you have to flip it so that it gets back to its original status, and then you can do that. But then they do that and they add a Photoshop, very good Photoshop, and people who are not skilled, again, at knowing if a photo has been manipulated will have difficulty in deciphering that. But it's good right now that we are getting the culture of fact-checking within Kenyan newsrooms. We've seen it with The Star, we've seen it with the Standard, and so Africa Check, Pesa Check, and everyone else is in that space trying to ensure that...
And the Newsplex as well.
And Nation Newsplex are in there. Now, there are questions that this, my fellow panelists have been asking about bribery, that we need to get to see where the money went. Was there money in the first place? The nature of bribery is that people do it under the table. So somebody is not going to pay you a bribe through a bank account. And they know that's why you hear money in briefcases. And that is something that journalists would take time. It would take time for journalists to uncover that. It would take time for investigators to get to that.
It's true.
Yes, but let me stop there, Mark.
All right.
Yes.
Really quick, because
so
we're way past our time.
Even when I say let's take politics to our back pages, actually, what you just illustrated, the story about the toxic fish, toxic lake, we keep asking why are people dying of cancer in Kenya and not in Tanzania and Uganda. Now, if you talk about politics from that angle, okay, so who's responsible? Who's the minister responsible? Which is the minister responsible?
Hold them to account.
Who are what is KEBS doing? Hold them to account. And then if we see the DP at KEBS, and the picture is there and he's gone there to find out why Kenyans are dying of cancer, splash him. Do a splash on that. I don't mind seeing him doing work.
You won't say it's a paid headline.
No. I mean, if heads roll at Kenya Bureau of Standards, at the port where the fish is coming through, whoever is supposed to, because we have all these scientists, all these people do.
Vincent, your last word on this, how you're going to push this forward.
I think the main thing we need to do as from tomorrow is to find out why Sergeant Kenai died, because the story broke out this evening, and the circumstances which he was found dead obviously point out that to a fact that they are related to this fake arms scandal. And then number two is to find out who else was involved and which other players are out there that we don't know. We've been told there was a female MP. We don't know who it is yet up to now. And then from that, we should also be able to tell the public which other scams that are similar to this one that are out there. Because I think 2 years ago we had one where somebody was told to supply laptops again to the military for, I think I have a figure here. He lost 240 million. And the guy also claimed he was taken to State House, he was taken to DOD, he was also taken to Harambee Annex. So it appears there are these kind of scams are out there.
And they're cartels.
Yeah, so we need to like tell people what is exactly happening.
All right. Thank you for that, Vincent, and all the best as you keep going. And Alfonso, thank you as well for your time. And yes, Africa Check, we will definitely be following you on the Fact Check platform to verify issues. And as someone else here is calling, Dr. Andrew Sule says, Ras Mutemi, oozing with some stuff here. Thank you for your time. And Kipchumba, thank you also for your contribution on the show. I perhaps have been doing my career here as a panelist, as a moderator of panels, quite wrong, as people have been saying. You probably saw this clip. Let's see if I can measure up to this moving forward from next week on Press Pass, and if I'll still have a job. Have yourself a good night. This is probably how Press Pass should be. Moving on.
आपके जो चट्टे बट्टे जो बैठे हुए हैं ना कम्युनिस्ट, इनको भी समझा दीजिए कि जरा जवाहरलाल नेहरू यूनिवर्सिटी के स्टूडेंट यूनियन को बात करने दो। जवाहरलाल नेहरू
यूनिवर्सिटी से हूँ, सवाल पूछने की कुव्वत हमें दी गई है,
और सवाल जवाब देने की कुव्वत भी रखता हूँ। आप जैसे लोग आप जैसे लोग जो खाते जेल के शेर के पैसे किए और खाते पाकिस्तान के खाते पाकिस्तान के आप लोग खाते पाकिस्तान के क्योंकि आप जैसे
लेकर आ रहा था, वो कहां से आया? ये देश जानना चाहता है, ये देश जानना चाहता है किस वक्त में अटैक हुआ भारत के प्रधानमंत्री भारत के
Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. Panadol Extra, now with new Optizorb technology. To fight multiple tough pains, with 3 times more pain-relieving medicine in the first 30 minutes when you need it most.
I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up.
Trend.
It's going down, cause I'm around.
Trend.
Everybody knows I'm a motherfucking star. Let me make one thing clear.
Ladies and gentlemen.